you all for joining us today. My name's Claire Beattie. I'm Senior Director for Thought Leadership at Genesis. We're delighted to have you with us at Xperience, and on this customer panel today, we'll be exploring how companies are using AI to transform the customer experience, and we'll be asking to bot or not to bot. I'm delighted to introduce our panelists. We have Jörg Knupp, who is the Head of Technology Incubator at Vodafone Germany, where he's responsible for driving digitization, automation, and AI across the customer experience. Matthias Jazdowski is Head of Customer Experience Solutions and Head of CX Product at Electrolux, the global home appliances company. He is leading the CX transformation that's part of a bigger program to turn Electrolux from a B2B to a B2C. Last but by no means least, we have Adi Kosaboom, who's Senior Director for Global Member Services Technology, Product and Analytics at TechStyle, which is an international fashion retailer that collaborates with the likes of Rihanna and Kate Hudson. And just to share how much Adi is passionate about AI, he's actually written a book about it. So we're very excited to learn from our customers today and really explore the use cases for AI. So Jörg, if I could start with you, please tell us about Vodafone Germany. What was happening in the business? What challenges were you facing at the time? And why did it point to AI being part of the solution? And if I could ask you to sort of start out by sharing with us some of the scale of your CX operations in terms of transactions and employees, that would help.
Sure, more than happy to do so. Hello, everyone, and thanks for having me, Genesis, once again to talk about our exciting journey. And what I'm going to talk you through today is about this little guy. This is our chatbot, Toby, and he's now roughly 3 years old. But in terms of our business, we are the largest TV operator in Germany. We are one of the 3 big mobile providers, and we also have fixed line broadband internet connections with a huge customer base. And in our service estate, we cover like 3.5 to 4 million customer interactions each month. So requests coming in from customers, coming in on call, coming in on chat, on messaging, on email, on social media. So basically we support all kinds of channels, and they're all supported on the Genesis system. And 3 years ago, we started on that exciting journey to go into the messaging space, where we were totally clear that only if we would be able to place a proper AI in that channel to answer customer requests, it would be suitable, and also from an efficiency and OpEx point of view, to cope with that, because the channel itself, like messaging, has such a low barrier that customers jump on it instantly. Maybe we cover that later in our talk. And you need to make sure that you are ready for that. And as any business, we are always looking for efficiencies. So we kind of made up our minds and said, okay, what could we do to be more digital, but also to enhance our choice of channels for consumers, what they would like to use if they have a request or want to order something. And that's where the AI piece came in. So having those high repetitive tasks, high volume, but without deeper knowledge, that's the perfect ecosystem where a bot can be applied to keep those transactions, so to say, away from the agent and leaving them the space to deal with the more complex ones, but also to create a holistic customer journey across channels that is consistent and gives the customer always the same answer. And in the end, if all our self-service efforts fail, to have a smooth handover to an assisted service to the right agent on a skill-based routing estate.
Was it challenging to build a business case in that first instance?
Yeah, it was, because we did have no idea how far we could go. So we knew our automation rates from other channels like classic IVR, also a smaller bit from live chat, which is always a little bit complicated because sessions go away and stuff like that. I think we are all familiar with that. But we had kind of a dream that we said we would try to leverage or to apply Toby to any of our conversations. So Toby is the name for our little chatbot, and it's spelled backwards, intelligent bot. That's why he's called Toby. And the idea is to have Toby basically in any conversation on any channel. and to have an increasing automation rate. And we had the ambition to, let's kind of say, exceed the KPIs that we saw on other channels. So in IVR, for example, we have something like 50-55% automation rate, which is one of the highest ones. And we have a little bit lower automation rates on other channels, because typically those channels are more for the more complicated issues. So that was our target there. And maybe to already talk a little bit about the results. When we first deployed our bot 3 years ago, so that was in April 18, we started at 16% on a very small volume in a smart niche of our business with a controlled volume and a controlled customer base, which has then rapidly grown to all our customers. And today we are more than happy that we already have 50+ automation rate. So every second interaction coming in onto our chatbot Toby is completely handled by this chatbot. And based on that, coming back to your question, the business case was, okay, we need to improve our automation rate. And for sure, there's a price tag attached to that, because every interaction or transaction that we can keep away from our agents that we need to pay for and that is handled by a bot is a good one, because that's OpEx savings. And we didn't build a proper business case in terms of we want to save like this million euro in 1 or 2 years, but we said, okay, we want to look at this KPI. We started in an agile way, in small steps, tried things out, proved them, and went on. And as long as the KPI goes up in the right direction and the saving increases, that's a good way. Once it maybe flattens, we need to look at it and see if we want to go further. And that was exactly the way we went the last 3 years. And it was constantly increasing from 16%, now way above 50%. And it's already producing 7-digit euro savings per year now.
It's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, Adi, I'd like to bring you into the conversation at this point. Tell us about your journey into AI. What were some of the challenges that you were seeing in the business, and what capabilities did you build first?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Claire, for hosting today, and thank you, Genesis, for having us on the panel. Yeah, a little background of our business model. We are an online e-commerce retailer. We've got about 6 million members worldwide, and they're monthly members. We service across 7 different languages, and all of the channels, traditional, but also in the social space as well too. So Facebook Messenger Direct, Twitter Direct, and also Instagram Direct, even though it's only in beta. The majority of our volume is over the phone. That's our traditional channel. We also have a lot of volume over chat as well. So those were the first 2 that we explored with regards to bots. And I love the Toby name. We call ours AI Anna because the majority of our customers are females and we have a female voice. And that was the first channel that we started with. And it was rather complex, starting with the voice channel first, not only because we have 7 different languages that we support, but we wanted to make sure that we focused on the hardest channel first, which was voice, and focusing on an NLP, natural language processing, and understanding not only intents, but also a little bit of sentiment around the intents as well. After we tackled that, and that was about 8 years ago from today, we focused on chat as a digital channel, slightly easier, a much safer environment because we owned the widgets on our website so that we could collect metadata before the conversation started, and also collect information in somewhat of a chat web form widget before it goes directly into a bot experience, almost enhancing the bot because we could ask them pre-questions like, what's your email address? And what is the nature of your concern or the intent of the reason that you're contacting us, without having it to go into a bot-like response. And then in recent years, we focused on social as another digital channel for our bots. And we did that about 2.5 years ago. We implemented across Facebook Messenger first, and now we've got a bot across Instagram and Twitter. And now we're venturing into a passive bot, which means that when someone posts a non-direct message, someone posts something on, let's say, Facebook on one of our main pages, a bot may respond with something or pull them into a more direct channel like Facebook Messenger, and then continue the conversation from there. So very complex origin story, very complex journey, and we decided to tackle the more complex channel first, which was voice, a little bit more than 7 years from now.
I'm curious about that. You know, if you're a customer watching, you might be thinking, do I go for the low-hanging fruit, or do I tackle the really difficult challenge first? Why did you go for what you thought would be one of the hardest challenges?
Yeah, it's hard, and we were torn in the beginning of either starting with chat or starting with voice. What we wanted to do was create an omni-bot experience across multiple different channels. That was the end goal. And we knew that we could not achieve that if we tried the low-hanging fruit first, maybe like a chat bot. We knew we were going to hit roadblocks and hit a much harder channel like voice in the upcoming year or years as we're developing this omni-bot experience. So we wanted to tackle the hardest one first. After tackling the hardest one, it's a downhill battle from there. It's much easier to deploy, copy, and assimilate it across multiple different channels. So that was our strategy. It took us a lot of energy, much like a train or a locomotive. It takes a lot of energy to get going, but once you get going, it's a little bit easier. It took us about 18 months to design, deploy, and then start piloting our voice channel. So it definitely was not an easy journey starting with the hardest one. If we were to start with a chat, I'm sure we would have accomplished that in a much shorter time frame.
And tell us, what kind of impact have you seen until now?
So we've seen some very interesting impacts. Obviously, some case deflection or self-service containment within all of our channels. We get about 35% self-service containment, which means someone goes through the experience, gets a response or gets something changed or gets some sort of status back, and then they're satisfied with that. They don't fail over to a live agent or ask for more information or switch to a different channel. So very, very positive there. What we've noticed also is that since we've had these bots in our ecosystem for so long, that our members are actually very dependent on them. It's much like adding a new channel. So if you were to add, let's say, SMS as a support channel, it's very hard to deploy it and then take it away a year later. Or if if you were to add hours of operations and now you're available 24/7, it's hard to go back to the 9 to 5 or no weekend support. Same thing with our bots. Our customers are very comfortable with bots, and we actually found an increase in phone volume after we launched the bots. And the reason why was that we found that customers would rather call a phone number and then perform some sort of action with a bot than go online or go to the Safari on their phone, log in, try to find where that action is and perform that action online. So very interesting information and data, and we've kind of shifted the way that our customers interact and converse with us. And a lot of our customers are very dependent on it. Whenever we have an issue or a bug with our bots, we often see that in social media posts saying, I used to be able to, perform skip the month or where's my order via phone, and I no longer can do that. Can you help me do those actions instead?
Very interesting how dependent they've become in such a short period of time. Okay, Matthias, I mentioned at the start of the call, Matthias, that you've been leading the customer experience area of the big transformation that Electrolux is going through from B2B to B2C. Would you tell us a little bit about, from the customer experience side, what that's involved, and at what point you realized that AI needed to play a role?
Sure. So welcome everyone, and thanks for having me presenting the Electrolux story as well. So our journey, as you mentioned, the shift from B2B to B2C and also D2C, so direct to consumer sales, it has started few years back with Electrolux creating a strategy that we would like to connect not only to our retailers that are selling our appliances, but actually directly to the end consumers. And that's how the consumer-centric transformation has started. with first very basic introduction of a common CRM platform and the common tools in the contact center that are supposed to be rolled out across Europe. And after implementing those basics, we started to think, okay, what can we actually do more in order to really catch up with all the trends that are happening in consumer area, and how can we delight our consumers? And quite easily we came to the conclusion that the current tools and the current processes, they are not really meeting the expectations about the omni-channel approach. So the consumers that were contacting us before through social media, chat, phone, email, they had all a bit of a different experience. So that was the first thing that we wanted to tackle. And then what we also saw as a trend that now is even more evident is the move towards self-service. So we have seen already before growing number of chat interactions, and that's why we decided to look for some more automation and to provide the support for the consumers 24/7, and have the opportunity for them to go through the self-service experience in the place and time that is comfortable for them. And in 2019, we started to have some design thinking workshops around it, and created our vision for how we would like to introduce chatbot and voicebot into our tools and processes and consumer experience. And in 2020, at the beginning of the year, we started the project called Solaris, which was aiming to introduce this common agent screen in the Genesys platform, connected with a Google Dialogflow bot that was serving our voice and chat channels. We had the first go live in Italy in July last year. And then the following go live in UK, and now we are working on further rolling out the solution across Europe. So it's progressing pretty nicely. And our bot, to finalize as well, our bot is called Freya, and it's coming from a Nordic mythology of a brave woman that's always happy to help our consumers.
Great. So what has been your experience thus far? Like, what did you find more challenging, or anything that took longer or shorter, like any surprises in your experience?
I think the main challenge from technological perspective was how to combine different systems to work together, because we had a lot of different tools that needs to work together in the contact center. And for the connection of the bot itself, I think that's where also we have seen that it's not about only enabling the conversational AI as a technology, but the challenge was to actually think how we are going to phase it with the right cases, right? So that we can have a good adoption at the very beginning, and then we can progress with more advanced use cases. So designing those initial flows and actually thinking what are the intents that the consumers are coming with, and what are they looking for with Electrolux, that was the biggest challenge, and that took the most of, let's say, the time in those design thinking workshops. And then translating this into the right scripts and the right flows, that took quite a lot of time, but it was also very rewarding experience, because basically then, based on the results that we have seen that we have actually done quite a good job on that part. We have identified the main intents the consumers are looking for, and we have managed to automate those basic processes and saving some time for the contact center agents.
We hit the same issues of having to pull information from lots of different sources. We wanted our bot to be more than just a look up some information and repeat back. We wanted it to have the ability to push information, change statuses, change things within our CRM or our CRMs. We had the difficulty, and Matthias, I think you had something similar, of having to build out API calls into our CRMs. We use a custom CRM, so we don't use Salesforce or Zendesk or Oracle. We built it, it's homegrown. And the first and hardest step towards AI for us was actually building out those appropriate API calls so that the bot can interact with our CRMs in the appropriate manner. And of course, giving the bot the level of permissions that we call it a she because she has a woman's voice, but giving her the permissions to be able to do certain things in certain flows. Some flows get qualified based off of what the member segment is or the lifetime value, so that certain members have access to more self-service tools than others, and that also adds a layer of customer experience complexity when you're trying to design the experience for your members or your customers.
Jörg, I wanted to bring you into the conversation as well. One of the themes that came up earlier was this idea of tackling the difficult challenge or going for the low-hanging fruit. Do you have a perspective on that?
Yes, I do. So we did the other way around than Adi. We started with the low-hanging fruit first. So at the end of 2017, we had the idea to jump into that messaging channel and apply a bot to it. So it was just me at the end of 2017, and we launched the first messaging channel, which for us as a mobile provider was based on SMS, already in February. So that was 3 months later. And already in April, we launched our first version of our chatbot, Toby. So this was a very, very short time frame. We had an agile team set up across the company. So we basically pulled everyone together that we needed. It was like no more than 8 people in the beginning to start very, very small, get that first version of the bot right, because there was always the exit or the path to an assisted agent at that stage. That wasn't that much of a problem. And we also tried to figure out, okay, what kind of intents might the customer want from a bot? But instead of trying to think this through ourselves, we just started it and collected experiences. And I fully agree, and this seems to be like an industry agnostic pattern, that it's for sure hard to connect to whatever backend system through APIs and so on. It's not just the technical connectivity. These days, it's also around security. Am I allowed? How can I access it? And so on. And we kind of found this very smart solution in the first version of Toby, because we do have a My Vodafone app, and 2/3 of our customers have this app installed on their phone. Maybe some of them are not using it frequently, or maybe they don't even know what capabilities are in there, what they could do themselves. So what we did is, for example, if the customer was inquiring about his, I don't know, latest bill amount or things like that, we did not have any backend connection, but we asked, hey, do you have the My Vodafone app installed? If yes, here's a link. And he was directly linked into the app with a deep link into the billing section where he could look up the bill on his own. And if he wasn't already a user of the app, we just said, okay, here's the link to the Apple Store or to the Google Store. Just please install our app. Login is very easy because it's based on your MSISDN, and then come back and we will send you a link. And with this solution, we not only provided customer-specific data, because that was already in the app, but we also could drive the app penetration up even further, because we made customers aware that simply didn't use it before.
Yeah, really driving digital adoption there.
Yeah.
So one of the dilemmas that companies have is to whether to go for a build or a buy. Do you have a perspective on that?
Here, I'll start. Build versus buy. So in our beginning, we started with voice, and we decided to buy. We decided to partner with a company to help us with the initial build. And as a software as a service provider, the third party did everything. They ingested all of our voice transcripts. They told us what intents we possibly should have. They did some confidence rates and some testing. We applied it to some existing phone transcripts. So this is kind of like in a pilot or beta phase. Instead of having it live to live agents, what we did was we played a recording of a pre-existing call and saw how the bot responded to those calls, and did that multiple times in the QA environment. And then after we were very content with its success rate from a confidence rate and in intent mapping standpoint, we decided to go live. But from that, we learned that we can potentially build off of that information and build it ourselves with either Amazon Lex or Google Dialogflow. So we started with the buy option, but then we quickly migrated as our internal expertise, and as we got a good sample set of data into the build your own. And now we're in this hybrid model where we have some third-party platforms helping us, and then we also have very robust tools that we've built out over the years across our digital channels. So it's a little bit of both. If we were to build from scratch, I think it would have been a lot harder for us to identify the intents without an expert going through and running some machine learning algorithms across all of our transcripts.
So in the early days, helpful. Jörg, please.
Yeah, very interesting. Once again, very similar to what we experienced. So as we had no experience and idea how to build a bot, we for sure went to buy in the first place. But there was the clear ambition that we buy that to learn ourselves and to be able more and more in the future to build it on our own. So it was to give us a head start and get going. And now we already have like more than 80 people after 3 years working in an agile release train on Toby every day. So that was quite a ramp up, and we only do have maybe not more than 10 externals now on the project. So it's more like we bought in first, but we are now doing it ourselves.
Interesting. Matthias, what about Electrolux?
Yeah, very similar journey as well. We started with buying, as I mentioned, Dialogflow is the tool that we are using. But already from the start, even in the pilot, we decided that the integration part is built by us. So we have built the platform for microservices, and the microservices development is purely internal development at the moment. And adjusted to our needs and our systems and processes. But still, in terms of the AI engine and its capabilities, we're trusting on what is available on the market. And with the same as with other SaaS solutions like Genesis, we decided that also if we want to speed up, right, the custom development would really take a lot of time, and it's better to count on the trusted partners and think more how to connect the systems in, let's say, Electrolux specific way.
While we're on the technical subjects, I wanted to ask you specifically about voice bots. I know, Adi, you went into the hardest space first, but operating as you do over several countries and languages, how have you found that to work?
Yeah, I'll touch on voice a little bit. There are nuances to voice versus digital channels for bots that are more complex to solve for. Obviously, you've got background noise on the voice channel. You've got crosstalk. So if someone's talking to someone else in a room and also on the phone trying to talk to a bot, it'll try to pick up the information or crosstalk across. Also, from a technology standpoint, the voice channel is harder because with our natural language and the way that we speak and say things like alphanumeric numbers and letters together, sometimes we say things like A is in apple, B is in boy. It's going to pick up that as in apple and as in boy. You have to scrub that out. And another good example of this is when someone says an email address. So if you're validating someone's email address and they have to repeat it back, the word dot in .com will not be a period, it'll be DOT, or the word at will be AT instead of an at symbol. So you have to pick up those nuances, understand that the person is trying to say an email address at that moment, and then change the A and the T to an at symbol. And that's just some basic technology things. Not getting into language, it gets more complex when you have languages, not only languages that are drastically different from each other, but also nuances within the language. So you've got certain languages that have formal and informal speak. So how do you address the customer? Is it a formal, he, she, sir, madam, or is it informal? And also you've got accents. So especially in America, you've got 3 or 4 pretty drastic or complex accents that you have to pick up. So there's lots of complexity. The voice channel is a little bit harder, but once you figure it out, and once your machine learning algorithm can help normalize that and turn it into a digestible text for your API calls to go back and forth, that's when you really start to become a lot more successful. And then it makes it a lot easier to go into a digital first channel.
Jörg, would love to know your experience with VoiceBot.
Yeah, we kind of took it the other way around. We have a natural language understanding IVR for more than 10 years now in place, but that's on the legacy technology. It's just with the statistical grammars on any vendor that you get out there and that you can put into your Genesis estate. But what we are now actually building is to apply exactly the same bot logic and NLP components that we have for our messaging channels, also for the voice channel. So instead of having like static trees, intent recognition and then always give the same answer, it's now more like to a dynamically generated IVR where we have input, understanding, output. And we have tried this now in the last 4 months. If the technology is good enough, because in voice there is one big difference, there might be, or you can't allow any latency. So once the input from the user ends, he expects an answer within seconds, if not less. So there's no room to have like 3 or 5 seconds silence until the answer is ready and you can play back to the consumer. And that was our biggest concern. And that's why we did the proof of concept. And we finally found out that the technology now is good enough. And we now pursue the dream of having one central intelligence to just have one logic that we need to maintain. So put intents in there, put in the right answers, connect only backend system with once, and then play it back on any channel, be it messaging or chat or voice, or maybe in the future also email. And we're actually building the infrastructure for that. That's also fully cloud-based. And the first go live and the first calls to the consumer will happen roughly in July this summer. So it's not that far away. And this will be a big mover for us because like I said in the beginning, we have like 3.5 to 4 million contacts every month, which is quite a bit. And you cannot afford any outages or things like that on that technology, because if that hits through to the agent, you're dead. So the IVR needs to be there 24/7, 365 days a year. And we really need to make that future ready and also scalable, and from an operations point of view, which was also quite new to us in the cloud environment.
I'd like to change tack a little bit and ask you about the perceptions of AI internally with your staff. Were there concerns that, you know, their jobs are going to become more automated or that their jobs will be going away? Did you have any experiences with that perception side of the AI rollout?
If I can start from Electrolux perspective, we have been anticipating this kind of change management problems, but actually what we saw as a reality is that the agents really well adopted the new platform, the new tools as well, and the interaction between the bot, the virtual agent, and the real agent. So that kind of competition or fear is not really there. What the agents really appreciate is the automation in their work. So if the bot managed to collect the information for them and pre-populate that information in the system, that's really appreciated. And what we have seen in terms of result is that actually the average handling time reduced to 56 seconds on average. So by 56 seconds, sorry. So that is almost a minute of every call that is shorter for the agents, and that means that there's a lot of things that they don't have to do today that they did in the past. So they really appreciate it, and from company strategy perspective, we don't see that also as a opportunity of cutting stuff, but more to actually direct people to more engaging activities, to explain maybe more difficult cases to the consumers and support them when needed, but also to have some sales opportunities. So the easy cases and the basic information is handled by the bot, and the agents are really engaged when it's needed, and that kind of handover from the bot to the agent it's playing quite naturally. And as I mentioned, it's pretty appreciated by the agents.
Mm-hmm. Especially if they have more sales opportunities.
Yeah. What we found is not only is it speeding up the agent's handle time, but also they're able to handle the more complex conversations, which is what they enjoy about the job. Doing the transactional, mundane things like resetting passwords 20 times in a day can be very unfulfilling for a team member. And what we found is that some of the agents, since we've reduced contacts at certain times of the month, they have the time to QA and go through transcripts and see if the bot is responding appropriately. So the people who are more technical minded have this ability to shine and say, hey, the bot should do this instead of that. And then they could start to give examples and feel like they can make a difference in the overall customer experience for the company versus just an individual interaction at a time.
Yeah, Adi, that's a perfect segue to another topic or another twist maybe that I can add to that topic. What we found is that AI is not taking away job. Instead, it's creating jobs. It's creating new jobs. And we have like more than 20 people now that were former hotline agents that are now bot trainers or bot designers, so roles that we created over the course of the last 36 months. And those guys coming from a service center experience, having worked them, some of them more than 10 years, taking calls day after day after day, being able to train a bot, so they're very excited and could have never dreamed of that, and said that was the best decision ever in the last 2 years that we decided to work on that bot, because that's something completely new, it's modern, it's state of the art, and they see the direct impact that their work has, because who else than hotline agents could answer better if the customer asks the question what the right answer is. And now they are training the bot to give exactly those same answers that they would give to the consumer. So we see a lot of excitement there. And we had a run of application once we had some job profiles out there on our job lists. And we had 10 times higher applications than the roles that we had available.
It's great to see that it's opening up career paths. So COVID-19, how did it impact what you're doing? Was there a change of strategy? Was there a change in consumer behavior that you saw? Anything at all?
Yeah, the couple things. From a technology standpoint, no one could have predicted that the conversations or the intents would have included words like social distancing or COVID or pandemic. So those new terms being ingested into our bots from a conversation transcript standpoint, we had to adapt. So, I think it was March 14th was the first day that we started to hear the words COVID. So for example, our customer would say, I can no longer be a member. I need to cancel my membership because I lost my job due to COVID. The program didn't understand the term COVID, so it was kicking it out to a live agent. After it was fed enough information, we created an intent around it, and now we have a save opportunity and path. So we have the ability to tell someone who specifically said those terms, we're so sorry about your job loss or your experience. Instead of canceling your membership, how about we put your membership on pause until you have the ability to afford this moving forward. So we created whole new flows and intents based off of the information that was coming in. And we wouldn't have been able to collect that information, at least not from a very concise technological standpoint, unless we had a bot in place collecting those intents and those phrases. So we're very fortunate to have already been able to collect that information. The other thing that was a direct result was we were getting a lot more volume across channels that we weren't used to. People were working from home, they were on Zoom chat, all these different, they were able to multitask while they were doing other things. So maybe they were at home on a work Zoom or a work MS Teams meeting. They were able to also chat and take care of their errands, their personal errands at the same time. So we're seeing people transition from calling us to chatting us instead, because the majority of our customers who call us, they like to call us when they're on their way to work, commuting to work in the car, so that they could do some sort of task before they get to work. Obviously, they're not commuting to work anymore, so our chat channel kind of exploded after the pandemic started.
Yeah, we also saw a big movement, for example, in the distribution curve, how the contacts are coming in over days. So typically this used to be like an M, and it's more like a plateau now. It starts in the early morning and it stays flat until the evening. So consumers really starting to contact us whenever they need to. And we also saw a shift in the intents, coming more to the critical technical infrastructure stuff, because working from home, having kids doing homeschooling and so on, you rely on your broadband internet connection. And as we are one of the biggest provider, that's critical. And also requests like, okay, now I want to increase my bandwidth because I see it's not enough having 4 people in the household doing things at the same time. So we kind of focused on the incident path to make sure that the customer has a seamless transaction or interaction there, and also can order or upgrade very easily just online instead of waiting in queue for an agent and so on. So that was the shift that we saw over the last year.
We just have a couple of minutes left. I have one last question. What's next? Matthias, can we start with you? What's next?
I think for us, as we're still quite new on the journey with the voice bots and chatbots, there's still so many new use cases that we want to explore. I think what's next for us, it's first of all, we're looking for automation of more processes. So we'd like to register consumer product data as well through the bot. And we would like the bot also to support the consumers with the sales process. So when the consumer is asking for, looking for a new product to buy or a service, then the bot could assist in similar way as the agent can, at least with the easy questions, easy comparisons. So that's what we're looking into. And another very exciting area that we're kind of co-developing with Genesys is the agent assist. So to have more support for our agents from AI in terms of what is the next step, what is the next action, what is the recommendation to give to the consumer, and here we have very wild ideas on how the agent assist could perform and what sort of support it could offer. From again sales support to maybe helping out also with prediction of the parts that are needed for the visit of the technician. So really sky is the limit, but of course we need to prioritize it accordingly and also see what is possible from technological perspective. And also the language coverage, that is very important for us, because you cannot do everything in all the languages. So we started with Italian and in English, and it was easy. But what we see in our European rollout is that not all the markets are so well covered from the language support perspective. So this is also maybe a constraint that is maybe putting a stop on some of our ambitions. Yeah.
So lots of creativity and innovation.
Yes, a lot.
And I'll piggyback off of that. What's next for us is real-time language recognition and language switching. So if someone starts the conversation in English and then changes to Spanish, the bot will recognize and then pivot as well. We also want, from an agent assist perspective, to do live translations as well, so that the agent can be only an English speaker and choose from kind of a switchboard from an agent assist standpoint, and then it'll pass it back in the language that the member customer wants, so that we can have agents that can be supportive of multiple languages during off hours, like weekend shifts or late night. So we don't have to have the coverage across all 7 languages for those times where there's only 1 or 2 conversations that come in during that interval. So real-time language identification, tracking, and response is the next step.
Sounds very impressive.
Yeah, so if I take a look into our hidden lab or into the garage where our highly skilled data scientists and engineers are working, there are also 2 topics that I find very exciting. One of them is to really get to a machine learning bot. So today, even if we call it artificial intelligence, there's a lot of work that you need to put in manually, because you need to train it, you need to formulate and program the dialogues and so on. And what we are actually trying to build is to have a bunch of algorithms sitting next to each other and training themselves. So for example, the input that one algorithm doesn't recognize and doesn't find any intent, we give this to another algorithm. He then maybe finds another intent. We just check it and then play it back and forth and try to bring the intent recognition rate up. Today, it's like 65 to 70%, and we hope to increase it with real machine learning capabilities without anyone really touching it, but just letting the algorithm figure it out themselves. By maybe 10%. That's one topic. And the other one, which I also find very interesting, is natural language generation, which is also quite a new topic. So instead of just programming the complete dialogue, Just give the bot some keywords and some parameters, and he will formulate and articulate the whole sentence by himself. So just give some content, and then the full text is computer generated. That's another one that I see as something very exciting for the future.
Thank you so much. We will have to leave it there. We're at time, but this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you very much for joining me today, and enjoy the rest of Xperience.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.